What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Coffee with Cory. I'm your host, Cory Smith, here to discuss some NC State men's basketball. This Wolfpack team plays against a Liberty team that is currently ranked inside the top 100 in the Ken Palm rankings. In the net, they're just a little bit outside of that. It's been moving around a little bit, but they're a quality team. It's a very good offense, an offense that NC State must find a way to shut down, in particular on the outside from the perimeter. It's a very good three-point shooting team, and NC State has been a really bad perimeter defensive team. So this is going to be a game where that's going to be put to the test in a big way in this game against Liberty. If I'm going to go over the pack priorities here, number one for NC State, it's on the offensive end of the floor. It's really about finding that cohesion again, getting things back together. Go back to the UNC Asheville game. That was a struggle for them. And we know all of the, kind of the pressure put on the team leading up to that game. We know all of the hard coaching, trying to find that edge that had happened in the previous days. We've heard all about it, and them trying to kind of a takeover when it comes to the way that the team was coached, as opposed to letting the players kind of do it. We heard Will Wade talk about it. But really in this game, it's about finding your offensive players again. I think this is a game, and I'll talk about who I have as my pick to click, but you've had a few guys that have been up and down. You go back to Darian Williams. It goes all the way back to the Maui Invitational. His play has not been up to par for what you need. We've heard that he's dealing with a little bit of a shoulder injury right now, and that's something that's probably hindering him somewhat. But this is a guy that you paid to come in and be your star player. It's time for him to really step up and be that guy in this game, especially knowing what you have coming up against Kansas, a team that is going to try to shut him down and force other players to really get going. And I think that, to me, is another reason why a guy like Paul McNeil has to get going in this game. We haven't seen it over the last several games. Had a couple, some moments in Maui. Obviously played really well at home, but for a guy that's your number two scorer, going into that, obviously Quiddy Copeland has moved into that role now at this point, but you need Paul McNeil to get back to the play that he's shown recently. And if you're getting into a game where you're going to have to trade off three-pointers because just how well Liberty shoots from the three-point range, that's going to be something where you really need Paul McNeil to get going and Matt Abel to have another good game in this one. But this is also a game where NC State must win the battle on two different sides on the defensive end of the floor. Number one, you've got to be able to limit what Liberty does from a three-point shooting standpoint. I think, look, I know going back to the last, the start of the season, and especially the last three games, it's been a really rough going for NC State from stopping the perimeter shooting. Go back to Texas, who shot 16 of 32. You go back to, the game against Auburn on the road, where I believe they shot 12 of 22 or somewhere along those lines, like two teams shooting 50% or better from three-point range and taking over 20 of them. That's not a good look for the defense. And again, you go back to the UNC Asheville game. They didn't shoot as well from three-point range, but still was able to find success, get some open looks. It didn't knock all of them down. This is a game right now where you've really got to figure out that defensive side of the floor, because Kansas is not going to be any easier when you go into that game from a three-point shooting standpoint. To me, Liberty is a team where you have to go out and prove it. This is a team that's it's shot 42.1% from three-point range on the season. That ranks fifth best in the entire country. But over the last three games, they've shot 38.6%. So can you get them to dip a little bit below that? Can you get them to force up some shots, against pressure? I think that's going to be the big question. Can you get some pressure on them? Because the key in this game is going to be stopping a guy in Brett Decker Jr. He's a guy that's been at Liberty the last 2 years. He's not a transfer into the program, anything along those lines. 6'3", 190-pound guard that shoots really well from outside. He's shooting 54.4% from the field overall, but shooting from three-point range right now, shooting at 44 or actually 58.7%. Like, that is just a massive clip, and that's something that you're going to expect to see a lot from him in this game. He's averaging almost 20 points per game, has over 20 points in 5 games this season so far, and has shot over five three-pointers in a game in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games out of the 8 that they played so far. So you can expect for him to take a high volume amount of threes, and he makes a ton of them. So for NC State, it's about getting pressure on him, forcing other players to beat you. Look, Liberty has other players that can beat you, but nobody that's as dynamic as him or has really kind of brought that to the table. But they have 5 players that are shooting or that are averaging over 10 points per game. The deal for NC State on the defensive end is not only going to be about stopping them and limiting them from a shooting standpoint, but also going down and getting rebounds. This is a team that's been out-rebounded a ton this season. Again, they shoot really well, so they don't have a whole lot of offensive rebounds to come down with. But looking at the rebound numbers, they're averaging 28 rebounds per game, which ranks 360th in the country. And their opponents' rebounds per game, 34.3, which ranks 133rd in the country. So if you're NC State, you have to come down with the rebounds in this game. It's not going to, that's not going to be a working system every single game. You don't have the size to constantly win the rebound battle. But this is a game where if you're going to come out, you're going to get extra possessions. You have to get it from that standpoint because this is a Liberty team that does not turn the ball over a ton. They have a 2-to-1 assist or turnover ratio, which ranks 4th in the country. So they're not going to turn the ball over a ton. This is a game where NC State has to be able to win it on the boards and limit them from a shooting standpoint. You have to be able to kind of force them into some bad shots and limit what they do from that side of the basketball. So those two factors to me could lead to a good defensive game for NC State. And then as far as the pick to click, I'm not going to be able to do it very often on the season. But I think my pick to click in this game is going to be Darian Williams. I think this is just a game where he's heard kind of some of the outside noise of, hey, he's got to get going. He's got to be the guy. And he's struggled a little bit recently, and he's said it, Will Wade has said it like, hey, look, we know this is not the best version of him. He had 6 assists in the last game. That was a great number. He, accounted for over 20 points in that game between points and assists. But this is a game where they really need him to get going. And I don't know if it's from 3-point range or it's him finding some shot creation inside. He's been one of the better mid-range shooters for NC State this season. One of the only guys that you really trust to take that kind of shot. It just feels like a 20-plus point game from him would end up lifting NC State. I think Paul McNeil has a good game in this one. I think he's going to get back on track. There's a few guys that you really need to get back on track before you play Kansas on Saturday. You need to know that you have a lot of different players that can be able to contribute and some, grow some confidence of the teammates around them too. So I think Darian Williams ends up having a big game in this one. I could see him going off for over 20 points in this one, hitting a few threes to be able to get that back on track too. But also somebody that rebounds the ball well in this one because there needs to be more accountability there too. The rebounding numbers for him have not been great in recent weeks. After getting sat down and talked to about that, I know he had a good game in the VCU game as far as rebounding was concerned, but it didn't travel to Maui. It hasn't really translated here in recent games, so that he has to get a little bit better at. And then I think again, if he's able to be hit 2 of 5 3-pointers and then be able to contribute inside and be able to score inside for you, he can be somebody that actually gravitates the defense towards him and opens up more shot opportunities for other guys. I think Quadir Copeland again has a good chance to have another good game in this one, but those guys need to really get going for NC State. The ones that haven't been as consistent recently, to be able to grow that confidence going into Kansas on Saturday, because that is a massive, massive game for NC State. And this one's a big one too. I mean, Liberty is a big game. It's one that NC State must win at home. You can't afford to lose this game, but I do think if you have guys like Darian Williams get going, that opens up more opportunities, kind of releases the pressure for some other players in this game to be able to get going. And I think him not being as passive, but also being a centerpiece, center point for this offense after only, the usage rate was just over 13% in the last game. That is not nearly high enough. Some of this is on Darian Williams. Some of this is on, not putting him in the right opportunities, especially on the offensive end of the floor to get going. So I think he has a better shot to put together a big game in this one. If I'm going with a prediction here, this is a Liberty team that averages over 80 points per game. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them get in the 70s against NC State. You go back to some recent games for them. It hasn't been, as high scoring once they've actually faced off against better competition. So I do think this is a game for NC State where you can limit them offensively. You go back to Towson. Towson was able to hold them to 69 points, and then Bradley holds them to 64 points. So this is a team that goes off against worse competition. But I do think NC State, probably gives up 70 points. But I think NC State ultimately wins this game somewhere around like 88-72. I think is the win for NC State. So we'll talk much more about this game afterwards and leading up to Kansas on Saturday. So thank you again, everybody, for listening. We will talk to you again soon.